and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman, and I am your host. Every Wednesday and Friday, I bring you interviews of female and non-binary makers of all kinds from all over the world. Today's guest is Marite of Crazy Happy Casa. I have been following her for a little while now. I'm trying to remember. I think I found her through Monica of House of Esperanza's network. But I am so glad that I did find her because she's just, I don't know, she brings some really great DIY, like home renovation tips, and just brings a lot of joy to my feed as I'm scrolling through. So I really appreciate following along with her. And it was great to get to know more about her story and understand why and how she's bringing in her like bilingual side and everything. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview just as much as I did. And before we get started with Marite, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the Revolution Pod Squad over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Lee at Lee Runyon, Annette at 513 Woodworks, Katie Thompson, Women of Woodworking, Kevin, Lefty's Woodshop, Christy, Twisted Twine, Jeremy Speece, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, Tool Mom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Brandy, Studio Obey, Lee, the Rainbow Carver, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you also very much for your continued and ongoing support, helping to produce 2 episodes a week every week. If you would like to get your name added to this list, you most certainly can. Please head on over to patreon.com/crafting a revolution. Check out the tier levels. No matter what tier you choose, your name will be added to this list, and I will thank you and mean it from the very depths of my heart every time I say it. And on that note, I also want to say, I missed you guys. There was no new episodes last week. I was out of town traveling for the job, and so now I'm back, and so happy to be bringing you new episodes again this week. All right, with no further ado, here is Marite of Crazy Happy Casa. But if you're ready, we can hop into it.
Sure, let's go for it.
All right. Well, as you know, I like to have my guests introduce themselves. Would you do that for me?
Sure thing. So I'm Marite. Sometimes it's kind of hard to pronounce Marite. I mentioned probably a couple weeks ago on my Instagram that my actual name is not Marite. It's Maria Teresa. That's the name my parents gave me. But all my life, everyone has called me Marite. So it's funny when people find out, like after months or years of knowing me, that's not my real name. It's a funny anecdote I have with my husband. But yeah, Marite. I live in the Houston area. I was born and raised in Peru, but moved here a while ago when I was 18. And I've been woodworking since last year, but I would say that I've been like crafting and DIYing for as long as I can remember. It's been a big part of my life. So I'm happy that now it's kind of like taking a turn and becoming something else that I'm really passionate about. So it's very excited to see it turn into like this beautiful thing that it's becoming right now.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start by asking a pretty broad question, which is, I want to know your story. I mean, you mentioned you were born and raised in Peru. So let's, I guess, start there. Like, what was your childhood like? What were the things we could find you doing, when you weren't in school and stuff?
Yeah. So like I said, I was born in Peru. I'm from the north of Peru. So I would say I was talking to my husband this morning about the interview and like kind of tying knots, looking at what made me take the path that I took, So I remember when I was little, I would like throw parties for like my stuffed animals and like for my dolls, and I would go big, it wasn't just like a pretend party. I would try to like invite the little, like the neighbors and my cousins and like throw like a party, for my dolls and toys and whatever. So I noticed that ever since then, that was like something big in me. I've always been into like crafting and like DIY making things, like even making dresses for my dolls or like little furniture for my little toys. I've always been like that. So that was a big part of me. I wasn't the big like outgoing kid that like rode around on my bicycle throughout the neighborhood. No, I was a pretty chill kid, I would say. I would stay at home and play with my toys and like build stuff for them. So that was my childhood. And then growing up, my dad is a doctor. So growing up, you would imagine that as a doctor, he would have said, you know what, something broke, I'll pay for someone to fix it. No, he was very adamant on fixing things himself. Like he liked to find a way. So growing up, I saw that. And I think that kind of like became part of me, like trying to figure out how to fix things, how to make things better. So growing up, like I said, I fell in love. I moved to the US at 18 to be with my now husband. We were broke by then, so we didn't have any money. We used to love like going to look at garage sales and buy stuff for whatever we could afford. I remember one time we bought a dresser. We rented a sander. We sanded the whole thing. It was hard. We didn't have any tools. We ended up not finishing it, but ever since then, we've had that like love for like doing things ourselves. Now moving forward, of course, we went to college, we graduated, we had a little more money. So we started like buying one tool here, one tool there, and started like DIYing things, from like making a frame for an artwork that we liked, or like sending like I don't know, a garage sale find and just making it work for us. So it progressed that way. But even until that point, my main passion, I would say, was like crafting. When I had my daughter 8 years ago, I loved to make like things for her. So it started getting bigger when she turned 1, and I started throwing parties for her. I like to go big. I don't know if you've looked through my Instagram. Like every year, I kind of post big. I like to like go big, and it doesn't mean like spending a lot of money. I like to find ways to make it big, but on a budget. Like doing things myself. Like I try to like make this big impact wall with like lots of balloons and colors, and so that started like shifting my crafting into something new, which was like the crafting for like birthday parties and like little details for my kids. So that became like that bigger side of me. And then in 2017, I stopped working. I used to work for an oil and gas company. We were both in the oil and gas industry here in Houston. That's something big. But when I had my son, my second child, we decided that I was going to stay at home with them. Like after having my daughter, I felt like I missed a lot of her, like growing up, like the milestones. So we knew that whenever we had our second, I was going to stay at home. So it was a matter of finding the time, like when are we going to finally pull the trigger and have another kid? So finally we decided it was time. And by 2017, I left my corporate job. It was working perfectly, but I still felt like there was something missing, because you stop working and then all of a sudden you kind of lose a little bit of the purpose that you had. Like I used to wake up every day, get ready, go. I had clear goals, and then all of a sudden I was staying at home with my kids. Yes, my goal was to keep them alive, but but I needed something else, And finally, last year with the pandemic, we were here at home, nothing to do, Yes, my daughter was at school, online, but I just needed something. So one day I was doing laundry, and I was like, oh, I'm tired of this laundry. I'm sick of like it's always a mess, and I need to do something. Now, my husband has been into woodworking for years now. Like I said, back like many years ago. He started buying tools. That was his hobby, but he works corporate. So he doesn't have the time to build stuff, to make stuff. So I felt kind of bad, like on his weekends, asking him to build something for me, even though it was his hobby, he wanted to do other things on his weekends, like spend time with us or do whatever he wanted and not like have a honey-do list like from me. So last year I said, you know what? I'm tired of this laundry room. It's always a mess. I need to organize it. I'm going to build something. Can you please teach me, show me how to use the saw? And he was like, are you sure? I mean, you have to be sure. You have to be careful. I need you to have all your 10 fingers. So I said, you know what? I'll do it. I know I can do it. And that's something about me, like even for like ever that I can remember, my mom has said that I've always had like whatever I put my mind into, I go for it. So this time it was the same. I was like, I know I can do it, and mark my words that I will build something like a built-in or something. So he was like, fine, I'll teach you, and then you'll go from there because someone needs to watch over, like take care of the kids. So I'm like, okay. So last year around Father's Day, he taught me how to use the saw. Like I think he taught me how to use the table saw and the jigsaw. Yeah, the jigsaw. I can't remember, but a couple of saws. So from there, I got my lumber from Lowe's because we have one right around the corner. You should, I mean, seeing me would have been comical because I was like this like 5'3" this like lady just trying to lift this big sheet of plywood. It was comical, but you know what? The good thing is that there's always people looking at me and saying, oh, what is this lady doing? And they come and offer help. Sometimes I feel like, like they think that I can't do it. So I'm like, no, I don't need help. I can do this. But sometimes I know that I need to like, okay, Marite, you do need help. So let them help you. So they came and helped me. I came and used the saw, and like, it took me, I would say like a couple of months, but I did it. And it was beautiful. And it was like my first big project that I built. I was so proud of it because if you look at it, I still go in there and I can't believe I built that, being my first woodworking project. Like I didn't start small, I started big. So it's always like amazing to me how, like we can do hard things. It's something that I always tell my daughter. For example, when we're like practicing math and she's like, oh, this is so hard. And I'm like, baby, I know it's hard. I acknowledge that it's hard. But at the same time, I tell her, I know you can do hard things. So that's something very important that I want my kids to see, not only hear, but also see. We can do hard things. So I think that became a big part of like myself in this last year of like woodworking and DIYing. It's not easy. It's not easy being a woman, being smaller than the things you're trying to lift, but we can do it.
Yeah. That's something I listen to, like, my favorite, one of my favorite people over the pandemic has become Glennon Doyle, and that's her whole thing. And she has a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things. Yeah.
I love that phrase. I don't know where I heard, because I remember hearing it somewhere, but we can do hard things. That's something, I don't know, that became ingrained in me because like I said, my mom always said that I went for it. When I put my mind into something, I went for it. That's something I teach my kids. Yes, it's hard. Like I acknowledge that it's hard, but we can do hard things.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love that phrase.
Yes, I know. I tell my kids that too, and usually I just get a look, but that's
well, because sometimes it's hard, and it's like when someone comes and tells you, yeah, you can do hard things, I'm like, okay, come do it then.
Yeah,
come do it for me.
Exactly. So when you came to the States, did you come to the States for, you said you came and married your husband here. Did you come though too for like college here? Was that part of the plan?
Okay, so that wasn't the plan initially. So I met him when I was like 12 years old. He was 13. We were both in I think it's the whole South America. We have elementary and we have high school. It's not like we don't have 3 schools like we do here in the States. So it's like 6 years and 5 years. So I met him when I was on my beginning of my secondary school, like high school, I would say. So yeah, we were friends. We had a crush on each other, but we didn't do anything. He moved to the US with his family because his dad has always worked for like big construction corporations. So they moved him not only around around Peru, but at one point they moved him to the US with his whole family.
Okay.
So that was that. We stopped talking maybe online once in a while. And then all of a sudden in 2004, he went to visit and we started dating. We were very young. We were like, I was 15 years old. We started dating, and then it turned into a long distance relationship. He went there whenever he had summer break over here, and then I would come to visit, same when I was on summer break. And then in 2007, we decided, you know what, we want to be together. We were tired of like this long distance relationship, but we loved each other. So I don't know how the stars aligned, and I convinced my dad or my parents, I guess, to let me come here to go to college. So after like a lot of back and forth, they said yes. And I came here and I went to college here. We got married right away. We got married in 2007. That was 2007. So that's how I moved here. And then that's how things started. So I went to college here. I started going to college in Peru, but like I said, we wanted to be together. So I left everything. I think it was like a little less than 2 years. I left everything there. And then I moved here and started over here. So I went to college in Illinois back in 2000. Well, I started back in 2007.
Okay. Illinois is not far from me. It's a neighboring state. So where'd you go to which college in Illinois? Was it like?
Well, I went to the U of I.
Okay.
U of I. We lived in a little town outside of Champaign-Urbana. It was called Tolono. We lived there, and then we both went to the U of I. Well, I went to a community college first, and then he finished school like over there in Illinois, and then we moved to Houston because his family, like I said, his dad was moved around the U.S. because of projects. So one of them brought him to Houston, and we saw a big opportunity here with oil and gas. There was a lot of jobs back then. So we moved here, and I had to finish my courses online because we moved here. Yeah. But yeah, we both went to the University of Illinois.
Okay. See, and that's funny too, because we have University of Iowa, which we also call U of I.
U of I.
So what'd you go to college for?
We both did business administration.
Okay. All right.
So it ended up being related to what I did here. To be honest with you, when I think it's the case for many kids, you go to college and you're like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? Like, what am I going to go to college for? So business administration seemed like a pretty broad career for me. So I went for it and I liked it. But I don't know if that would have been like my first choice. Even now, I don't know why would have been my choice. I mean, I'm happy with what I did and what it allowed me to do. But it's hard for like kids. They're kids, like 18 years old. They're kids, and they have to decide the rest of their lives on that spot, you know.
Hey makers. So today's podcast episode is sponsored in part by Alicia Van Osdal, who is the owner of Basil Blue Design Company. Alicia is a maker of all things, really. Her focus is on beautiful craftsmanship through woodworking, repurposing, refinishing, art, and sculpture. Her background includes 30 years of graphic design, logos, and branding. If you have an idea or concept and need a creative solution or graphic design, you can email Alicia directly at Alicia, and that is ALICIA @basilblue.com. Or you can visit her website at www.basilblue.com. And fun fact, Alicia actually designed the logo for Crafting Revolution. So that is an example of the impeccable work you can expect if that is something you are in the market for. So be sure to look up Alicia again at her website, DIYerMarite.com. All right, let's get back into the action, which is insane. And I think as generations have gone, like my mom is the last of like the boomer generation. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was like, yes, you get a degree or you go straight to work after high school. And like, that's what you do for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. You don't change it,
Yeah.
nothing like that, where it's like, I'm the first, I'm the first year of the millennials. And it's like, yeah, I'm already for like job, like, okay, it's time to completely change what I've been doing for the last 20 years and do something completely different. So yeah, I think the millennial generation and on is kind of like, we don't want to just pick one thing and stick with it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think part of that is maybe even just as makers is like we enjoy learning constantly. And so then of course you're
Mm-hmm.
going to continue to grow um,
Yeah.
as you learn more. So I do wonder though, like, why not go into um, party planning and doing that? Because it sounds like that's something you've been
Well,
passionate about from like a kid.
like I'm particular when it comes to like doing things for myself. I have a very hard time asking for help and like going to other people. So I thought, yeah, I don't know, something in me wanted to do something that's just like in here, where I
Yep.
have like all the like the decision power and all the I don't know, that something in me didn't want to go like outside. I was afraid of letting people down if they didn't like something that I did. So I don't know. I never took it like completely like big. I really like to do it, like I said, for my kids, for like my family, or like a little get together or an event here in the family. But I never like actually considered doing it like as a business. And also the thing is that back then I used to work, I had a full-time job.
Yep.
So I never really thought of like making this into a business. So it was only like now that I'm not working now and that I found something new that I thought, okay, maybe like as a content creator, I can start a business. But I never thought of like putting a business, like turning it into a business, even though my husband has always been pushing into like, you need to do this for a living. You're good. And I'm like, no, don't put things on my plate. This is whatever I can do. And that's all.
So when starting to do DIY at home, and
Mhm.
it started with just a project in your own laundry room, where did the when does the content creator business part kind of come into play?
Okay. So let's go back like 8 years when I did parties for my daughter. Well, back then I only had my daughter. I started a blog. I liked it. Just putting it out there. It felt like, like after becoming a mom, you kind of lose a little bit of yourself
Mhm.
into that role. So I needed something for me. So I had a full-time job, but I started a blog where I started like putting my little projects here and there. It wasn't anything consistent. And that's the thing. I closed it like after a few years because I couldn't be consistent with it. I had a job and that was my main focus. And then my family was my main focus as well. So kind of like the blog took a backseat and I never put any major effort into it. But I kept my Instagram because I opened an Instagram with my blog. That's why my handle is Marite underscore crazy happy casa. That was the name of my blog back then. So I always kept the Instagram because I still wanted to share whatever I did, whatever like little tricks or whatever I did, I like to share with people. I thought maybe this can be useful for someone. So that was free. Instagram was free. I kept the Instagram. Um, and then every once in a while I would post something. And then when I started posting about my bigger DIYs, my woodworking and stuff, that kind of started taking off. So that's how the two of them kind of like married and became what it is now.
Okay. Were you aware of this world of like content creation as a job?
I was.
Okay.
So like I said, back then when I had my blog, I knew like somehow I found like a couple accounts that started sharing what they made every month. trying to encourage people to go for it. But like I said, well, I mean, I was like with ads, I was making like pennies every month. So it wasn't worth it for me. I didn't have the time to do it. So I was aware that there was a way to monetize it. By the time I thought it was ads, only ads. Those ads that you go into a blog and you see like on the side. Yeah. So I was aware that people were making money, but I didn't have the interest or the like an interest big enough for me to like look into it and like kind of go that way, you know. So I had an idea, but not I didn't know how it was like on the Instagram world. I had no clue of how people like worked and like how they made a living out of it. I knew that there was a way, but I didn't know what was that way, you know, like it was only this year I would say that I really like took more interest and started like looking, and I found like a group, you know, of people that are like huge resources, at least for me, to learn like the ropes of this whole content creation job, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's key, and I would say that's something that's really actually pretty great about the DIY and maker spaces is I feel like everybody is good about sharing information and not like keeping it to themselves,
not
like
just hoarding
it. And so I think that's really awesome because it can help the rest of us who are trying to make trying to make at least a little bit of money off of this. Do you feel like there could become a point, like if you continue to grow and make more of a living off of it and stuff, like, do you think at any point that it turns it into too much of a job in the sense of like removes enjoyment from it?
The joy.
Yeah.
I think there's a fine line, you know, like even now that I'm like an itty bitty account, I find myself becoming overwhelmed sometimes. For once, that big projects are not like sustainable. I cannot go around my house and like knocking out things that are already built to build something new, you know. So it's not feasible to think that I will be able to live on these like big projects and make a living out of that. That is one of the things. So not feasible in the sense that I can like make up projects. And the other thing is that I really notice that I get tired. Like after a big project, I want to like shut down, you know, like I'm an introvert. And like, yes, I'm out there. Like I joke with my husband, I don't know how I became like this person that talks to people on the internet when in real life I'm like quiet and like I'm an introvert. So it's not like my nature. So that's the other part. I get like tired of like putting all this energy into like big projects. So usually what I do is like I just finished my outdoor kitchen. Right now I'm focusing on like smaller projects, things that I have to fix around the house. I have like a couple of planters that were like so damaged from the sun and the heat. So I'm trying to fix them and just trying to like go into that side, one, because it's not, like I said, it's not feasible to work on big projects all the time. And two, because I don't want to get burnt out. So I don't think, for me at least, I don't see myself being one of those big account DIYers that go like full blown projects like all the time. I don't see myself doing that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm totally, which is funny, you know, that I have like a podcast and I do all kinds of things online, but I am totally an introvert. If you know me in person, I mean, my family, you know, like my original family of origin, the ones I grew up with, always joke about that if they have like a phone conversation with me or something like that, I talk very little. Like I just don't. I just don't. Yeah, and I am totally happy in the world of going all day without talking to somebody. Like I'm okay with that. And I think maybe that's what allows me, and probably same for you, to like put energy into like a 30-second post, you know, because it's like I can put a lot of energy into this.
Yes.
Because what's around me is not taking up this energy at the moment. But things like then when I go to conferences, like Workbench Con or something like that, it takes me like 2 weeks to recoup after
Yeah.
all of that energy put out, for 4 straight days. I'm like, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody.
I can totally relate to that. I can imagine myself. I've never gone to a conference, but I can imagine myself like trying to like gather energy before the conference to like be able to talk to like a lot of people, and then after like I'll probably be okay like talking to people and everything. But I can just picture in my mind like the energy that it would take from me to do all of that, because that's not in my nature. So I have to make an effort to like be this person, be this more like outgoing person. And I mean, it takes energy from our side, but I like it. Like it's not something that I like push myself and then I regret it. I like it, but at the same time, I have to take my time afterward to like recoup and like regain my energy.
Yeah. I'm also with you on the whole, like, to be honest, I don't know how the big DIYers like continue to find big projects to do. I really don't know how they do it.
I don't know.
I'm like, okay, so at some point you are redoing spaces that you've already done. Like you have to. A house only has so many rooms in it.
Exactly. That's what I think. That's when they buy a new house.
That's right. But I'm like, I would almost cry if I had put so much energy into that room once already. And then it's like, and then go back over it again. But I've said this on the podcast before. Our home still looks like we just moved in yesterday. It is not decorated at all. And we've lived here for like 8 years. So that's our design style. It doesn't exist. So much so that, our 8-year-old is like, really, people, what design style is going on here? We need to figure.
Well, my house, we've been living here for like 5-6 years, and I wouldn't say it's not decorated, but I would say that the other part is that my style has changed over the years. So there are parts of the house that I see that I like, or that I still like, but at the same time I know that I want to do something else with it. And the other part is like, we bought this house, we built this house with a builder, of course, but we built this house, so it's not like an old house that I want to take down a wall and like fix it. No way. Like this is a fairly new house that I just like, whatever I want to do is mainly cosmetic. So thinking about like knocking walls and like redoing a whole room, that kind of like, that's not for me.
Yeah. Right now we're focused on like, let's pick an aesthetic and pick a room and go from there. But then I struggle because like my account is not a DIY account, like at all. And actually, for the most part, whenever we've had big projects at the house, we've hired it because that's not my skill set. There is a difference between like woodworking and construction. Like there's a big difference, and the skills don't necessarily transfer over.
They don't overlap sometimes. Well, and sometimes it's like things that you want to have a professional look into it. Like I don't feel comfortable doing like big projects where I know that I could mess up something that's important for the integrity of the house. So no way I'm gonna get into that.
Yeah, there's definitely still stuff that like electrical, I'm always going to hire somebody for that, just because I'm super nervous about messing it up and like accidentally burning the house down because I messed something up. So
I've been there when we were doing the patio, the outdoor kitchen project. One of the things that I had to do was I wanted to add a mini fridge, like a beverage fridge. And I didn't have, I had an outlet, but it wasn't where I needed it to be. So we had to move it. So we brought an electrician, and he said that it was like $300, but he like, okay, if you can do this like within so many days, I can do it for $250. So I was like, oh, 250 is a big number to add to a
Right.
project, you know? So my husband, he's the biggest like hype man. He was like, I know we can do this. It's not, I mean, it's adding an outlet. And I was like, oh, I'm nervous, but you're going to help me. I said, I'm not going to do this by myself. He's like, okay. After work, we tackled it. And of course, it took us like half a day. It
Right.
would have been probably like a couple-hour job for the electrician, but we didn't. He knew my
Yeah.
husband knew what he was doing, but he doesn't do this all the time, you know.
Right.
So it took us like the whole afternoon, but we finally did it. We saved like $250, but now after doing that, I was like, okay, I know why they charge what they charge. This was a lot of work. So I'm not doing anything else other than like adding an outlet or like changing a light fixture.
Right.
Those things I can do, but going into like more than that, no way. That's for the
Yeah,
that's for the
I can
professionals.
change a light fixture, that I feel comfortable with. And we've started doing that because our house was actually built the year I was born, so it's 40 years old. And it still looks 40 years old. Like everything still looks like 1980s. And I'm like, oh. So we've started changing with the light fixtures because it's like what I call like, not trying to be crass, but like the boob fixtures where it's like,
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I know. I'm looking at one right now. So
So I'm like, no, let's at least change some of those out and get like LED lights and stuff like that. Be more,
yeah,
economically conscious and environmentally friendly and all that stuff. Yeah.
of course.
So where are you looking, or where are you hoping? I know you touched on it, like, you had a big project and then kind of do some smaller stuff, but what are you like, what's the vision for you as a content creator?
So, well, I have two things. One, the thing that I mentioned before, that I want to show people, not only people but women, that we can do, like I said, we can do hard things. And then also a big part of my account, I don't know if you've noticed, but I translate all my content, all my stories.
Yep.
Because like big part of my uprising was that my Latin American culture that is very stereotypical, like like the gender roles are very accentuated in like you're a woman, you do woman things, and no, for me that doesn't go, like I can do hard things, I can do man things, I can do anything that I can put my mind into. So a big part of that is showing. That's why I translate my content, because it really started mainly for my friends and family, that like when my account was smaller, and they're like, oh, I mean, like, I want to know what you're doing, but I don't understand English. So I started translating for them. And then all of a sudden I found like this new group of people that really appreciated me translating everything, And it's funny because, when I learned like all this DIY and woodworking, I learned everything in English, even though Spanish is my first language, or you probably can tell that I have an accent. Even though Spanish is my first language, I learned everything I know in English. So you can find me like almost every day Googling how to say miter saw in Spanish, because I don't know. Like, I know Spanish, but I don't know woodworking Spanish. So it's funny because I always apologize to my audience. I'm sorry if I like translated something wrong or translated something that it wasn't really the exact word. I'm trying my best, but I'm Googling my way through like all the words in Spanish regarding like DIY.
Well, I'm even thinking like the way that woodworking is taught in English, like the sentence structure is different than the sentence structure of Spanish. So like I can imagine even just trying to, maybe even if it's hard to find like that term in Spanish,
it is hard.
Like the terms around that term of like how to use it probably can be a little bit have to find how do you describe this a little bit.
Yeah. And not only that, but on top of it, you have the fact that a lot of countries in South America use different words for the same thing. So I'm like, oh, I just hope I'm making sense. If I'm not making sense, just let me know, email me or DM me or whatever, so I can explain it to you, because I want to show these people, not only here but also there in Latin America, that these things are doable. And that's part of the things that's part of the reason why I like to keep my content balanced between like big projects and like smaller ones, because sometimes it's not feasible for them over there. They don't have like the same tools, they don't have the same material, they don't have the stores that sell these things to regular people. So I want to mix it up and make sure that I do things that they can do as well, you know, like fixing something smaller, or like, I don't know, like, you know, things that they can do.
Mhm.
So I see myself growing this way, not only like tackling the big projects, one, because like I said, it's not feasible for me. I'm gonna get burned out, and then because I want my audience to see myself doing things that they can replicate.
Mhm.
And if they're not gonna be able to build this big outdoor kitchen, then I mean, I don't want to show them things that, okay, it's nice, but I'm never gonna be able to do that. So I see myself growing this way with like a balanced mix of like content, both big and small.
Yeah, I mean, it's only empowering if they can actually access it to become
Exactly. Yeah, because then it becomes boring seeing someone do things over and over. But okay, I'll never be able to do that. I don't want to be that person. I want to be something like my account to be something different, encouraging, but also, like I said, something that they can replicate and do and like take as an example.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, bringing up, I guess, a little bit about um the cultural piece around like the cultural norms of gender norms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just curious, like, it doesn't sound like it, you know, your mom saying if you put your mind to it, you do it. But was there any surprise, like, from, you know, your
Not
family?
really.
Yeah.
No, no. In my family, I mean, I feel like I was very lucky to be brought up in this environment that I was like always encouraged to do whatever I thought like. If I thought I could do it, then yeah, put yourself into it and you'll be able to do it. I always felt like my parents and my family believed I could do things. So I wasn't talking about my family in
Right. Yeah.
specific, but around the culture itself, you know, like it's like I do hear, oh my God, she's doing that. I can't believe she's doing that. I mean, she's a woman, she has kids, you know, like I hear those things,
Yeah.
even though it doesn't come from my family. I know that that's kind of like the mindset in Latin America. And I mean, luckily it's changing now.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see that, but I'm also part of like I want to be that person that shows that it can be done, you know.
Mhm.
That's one of those examples of like, oh, this can be done, and doesn't continue with like the typical stereotypes. I want to be that like rule breaker and do things that
Mhm.
are not like quote unquote
Yeah.
meant to be
Yeah.
for women, you know.
Yeah. Hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag woodwork her on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also, great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know this. Have you gone back into doing any like blog type of work with it?
No, I've been thinking about it. You know, I've thought about starting a blog again, but I don't want to put too much on my plate right now. Like I have my kids, I have like Instagram itself. It's a lot of work. Keeping up with the whole content creation, it's a lot of work. I do have a Pinterest account, and I'm seeing like more traction there. I'm seeing people asking things there, like DMing me or making comments there. So I kind of direct, because most of my content is on Instagram. I try to direct them into my Instagram account because they'll find more answers there. Sometimes I don't have the time to go into Pinterest and answer all the questions.
Yeah.
So I try to like say, oh, hey, I saved all the details in this highlight on my Instagram account. So just thinking about those two, it's a lot of work. I've been thinking about opening a blog again, but like I said, I don't know. Maybe once my youngest is in school, maybe I'll have more time, but I don't know yet. Right now, I feel like my plate is pretty full trying to learn everything.
Yeah.
So I think once that settles a little bit and I have kind of like a routine, then maybe.
Yeah, I was just, I guess, thinking, you know, and I don't, you know, I don't know this because I don't follow pretty much any blogs because that's just not my, I don't do well digesting information from reading it. So that's not what I go for. But just like you're translating on Instagram, I guess my thought was like, if you had your blog with your projects laid out in both English and Spanish, yeah, be another, I guess, good resource for, because I don't know if that's out there, like the dual.
That is a very good point. I'm taking notes right here. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
See, now you're giving me advice. No, that's a great point. I didn't even think of it. And you know, like, for example, one of the things that I have like I don't know, like a mixed feelings about is translating, for example, my captions on Instagram. I don't do that because there's an option. You can scroll to the bottom of the caption and translate, and it translates it for you. Now, they came up with that feature in stories, but I don't like it that much. I like to like, because sometimes it translates things like different, especially because I would do more of my content is on stories rather than the feed.
Yeah.
I find it easier for my audience to read it from me, as opposed to like clicking on the translate. It's more steps for them. Like if they want to find something, they'll have to go to like the top and click on the translate button, and then it opens up. So I want to make things easier for them. So I would say that it would be, if I did open a blog, I would say it would be easier for them to see it from me. But I hadn't even thought about that.
Would you say, like, do you know the mix of like Spanish versus English speaking, like the ratio is, you know, of people who follow you?
I would say right now it's like 70-30, but it used to be higher, more people speaking Spanish. Like it used to be like 60 English and 40 Spanish. But recently I've noticed that the English speakers audience has grown. I don't know if it's because like some of my projects on Pinterest, some of the pins have gone a little bit viral, I would say, and a lot of people have moved into Instagram. But I've noticed that my the ratio has kind of like decreased. The ratio of Spanish speakers has decreased. Now there's the other part of like the dual language. I find a lot of people there that are English speakers but come from Hispanic households. So they identify themselves as English speakers, but they also speak Spanish. So I don't know if that kind of like has moved my balance a little bit.
I bet that would be a mix in there. I guess the reason I was asking is because I was thinking to myself, and I would understand if you're looking at it like, well, you know, only 30%, but probably more realistically, you are getting people who are bilingual, who are following you. Is like, why not do the stories in Spanish and make people like myself have to go up and hit the translate button?
Yeah, that's a good point. And the reason why I didn't start doing that is going back to my translation. Like I don't like a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would have to stop myself mid-sentence and go Google, how do you say that? And then continue. That's the main reason why I don't speak Spanish when I'm doing this, because I don't know. So it's easier for me to record the story and then go back, and when I'm putting the captions, go Google and then write it down, you know, than when I'm speaking. Because then it would take me forever.
That makes sense. But yeah, I think, I mean, I know, you know, there's a couple other bilingual DIYers that I follow, and with, you some kind of Latin America, or, from South America or somewhere that they came from. And I think though they do almost all of their content in English. Only occasionally do they do that. So I think, that's I'd say a smart business move, if nothing else, on your part to look at doing both. And I think that's breaking ground in the sense of empowering people who may still be in a space where it's not seen as okay, for them to do quote unquote man's work. Do you think you could have gotten into this staying in Peru? Like you said, the materials could be different and the tools being different and stuff like that. Would you have had access to all of that?
I think I would be able, maybe not to the extent that I'm doing right now. There are some things that are available. I mean, I know I can find different types of sauce and different types of materials, but not to the extent that I do here. I can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and find all the variety of materials and tools, and I don't think it would have been the same over there, or over here. If you go to those stores, you can find a contractor, a professional, going to the same store that you are. I don't think it would be the same over there,
Yeah.
So maybe I would be able to do some DIY.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You mentioned something about them not being able to go to certain stores there. So it's if you're a contractor, only contractors can go into those type of spaces?
Well, no, I meant that if you go to the store, not being able, meaning that not being able to find the same things at the store.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't think there's stores specifically for contractors. But I was saying it in the meaning that you wouldn't be able to find the same materials or the same tools or those type of things.
Yeah, gotcha. So continuing down, I guess you're going to try to continue to grow that element. Do you have plans for going to any of the conferences that are kind of coming up?
I would love to. I don't know if it's in the cards right now. Maybe as I grow a little bigger, I might consider going. I have to find a balance. Right now it's mostly out of pocket that I'm doing everything out of pocket. I'm not making a lot of money per se. So maybe once I start seeing that balance and I can actually can afford from my own business to go instead of just reaching into my personal pocket and paying for everything, maybe then I would consider going to this type of events and investing more into it as I get more from it.
Are you connected with community DIY and woodworking community there in Houston?
Not yet. I've seen a couple. I know a couple of people, a couple of DIYers here. I haven't connected yet, and I think it was mainly because last year and this year has been weird, with the pandemic and everything. But I think I would love to start connecting with more people over here, meeting them in real life and feeling you're not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not inventing the wheel, but meeting them in real life and connecting over that, I think that's pretty cool. I would love to do that. So maybe in the next month, maybe beginning in the new year, as things get better, I think it will be easier for me to say, okay, I think I'm ready to go out and meet these people in real life.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for the pandemic to be over and just going back to normal life and being able to go out without thinking about that,
Yeah, I know for sure there's a pretty strong woodworking community in Houston area, but it's funny. I know, a ton of people through Instagram. I can't name a single person in my local area. I can't.
Well, and you know what? A lot of the times you know them by their handle.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to this person, I'm like, no, I don't know who that is. Oh, it's this and that, like the name of the handle.
Yeah.
Oh, I know who that person is.
Yes.
You know, that becomes our identity that we
Yep.
kind of forget what the real names are. It's
Mhm.
funny. It's funny, right? It's sad, you know, because we are real people. Like we are not just like this Instagram handle. But yeah, it happens to me too.
Yes, yes. And maybe it's that a bit of that introvert too, right? Like, oh, I have to go meet people in real life. Easier to put the
But you need to
energy.
gather the
I know.
energy. I can relate to that 100%. It's funny because my husband is kind of like the extrovert of the relationship, so we balance each other. He's always pushing me to like go for it, talk to people, email people or DM people or reach out to this brand. And I'm like, no, just let me be like small for a second, you know, like let me enjoy this like smallness for now, because then if it gets big, it's gonna be overwhelming for me. So it's a good balance. He's always pushing me. Like for the longest time, I didn't want to show my face on Instagram. If you scroll back all the way to like early last year or even before that, I didn't show my face. I wasn't in stories. Like my stories were only showing like what my eyes saw. I didn't like showing my face or talking or anything. And he was one of the people pushing me. You need to show your face, you know, you need to like show them who you are. And I'm like, oh, okay, just like being like in the shadows, just like not talking to people. But he was right, because that's how you connect. Like that's like the personal aspect of it is what lets you connect with like the people on the other side of the screen. So that's how I started talking to the camera. And I guess it was weird at the beginning. It still is sometimes to like talk to myself on the phone, like there's no one there, you know. So it's weird, but I understand the part of it that lets you interact with your audience, you know.
Yep.
And the other part for me was the English side. You know, I speak English. I went to college here. Clearly, I worked, so it lets me communicate. But I've been always not afraid. I would say conscious of my accent. You know, I don't know why. I shouldn't be. I know I shouldn't be, but I'm always like, oh, what if I say something wrong, or what if I pronounce it wrong, or what if I don't know, what if they don't understand me? I don't know. It's something that was always inside of me that I mean, I just have to embrace it and know that my accent is part of me, and it is what it is. You get the DIY with the accent. So
that's right. Yeah, and I've honestly, as somebody, you know, I grew up speaking English. I'm, you know, as like white bread America as you probably can get. And so like it took until like, I guess, being more exposed to not everybody looking like myself, that I learned, like, you know, now I have some good friends that are like English as a second language. They grew up speaking Spanish in the home and like didn't even learn any English until they started going to like, you know, school here. And so I take for granted, sometimes they'll be like, I don't know the English word for what I'm trying to say, you know?
Oh yeah, I feel that.
And it's like, oh, like you know, and sometimes I'm, I guess, not as aware of my ignorance all the time. But now I'm trying to be more, I try to be more conscious of that. To know, like, if I get a blank stare from something I say, going, okay, obviously, like there's a different word for this in Spanish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm right there. I'm one of those people who will sometimes like just stare at the person, and I'm like, I'm too shy to say anything, but maybe I'll go back later on and like Google it and see what it meant.
Well, you can trust with me. You can just tell me. You can, if we're ever, you know, having a conversation, you can be like, Katie, I do not understand what you were talking about. And I won't take it as anything. And,
well, and you know what? That's the beauty of the captions, you know, like I feel like sometimes because I speak fast and I speak with an accent, there will be some words that won't be like fully understandable. So I think that helps. Even that's why I do it in both languages, because even though I speak in English, I still want for the people that listen with, I mean, look at the stories without listening, like without the audio. And then even for the people that are listening and then maybe didn't understand what I said, that's why the captions are there. So it's that's why I do it in both languages. I know I could like click on the caption button, but even then that would probably misunderstand some of the words I would say.
I was gonna say, I know it does it to me, even like if I just put the captions on there. And most of the time I don't take the time to look through and like correct, and I go ahead and just post the story with it. And I'm like, what in the world is that word that it's coming up with for what I just said?
Yeah, so you can't imagine. That happens to me.
I'm sure it happens a lot. I can imagine anybody with an accent probably.
Yeah.
That AI just hasn't been trained to recognize that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're at the end of our time together, so I want to make sure that I give you a chance to again let people know how they can find you and follow along with you.
Well, you can find me at Marite, Marite. I know that's sometimes hard to like know how to spell that. _ crazy happy Casa. That's my handle. Like I say, I don't know if I'll open a blog anytime soon, but I'm just hoping to grow that community, to like keep encouraging people that we can do these things. We can do things that we didn't even know, we didn't even imagine we could put ourselves into. So just I don't know, I just love being able to be that person that's showing that we can do these hard things. So yeah, follow me on there. Just let me know if you have any questions, and you get the accent too. Well, and you'll be able to learn some Spanish because you'll be able to see both the same phrase. So I try to make my phrases as like close possible that you can like the translation. I mean.
Yep. Awesome.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna attempt not to butcher it. Marite.
Accent in the E. Marite. I've been working. Well, I worked in corporate for several years, and I saw a lot of suppliers, and it was always a new one. To be honest with you, I didn't really care if they said Marite or Marite or it didn't matter to me because I know that they were making an effort to say my name.
Yes.
So it's okay. Marite. They both. I'll understand that you're calling my name.
Okay. Good. Well, Marite, thank you so much for.
Thank you. To be honest with you, Katie, I was afraid of doing this because I don't know, because of the introvert in me, because of the accent, because I don't know. I was nervous. So now it was a good time. I had a good time.
Good. Awesome. Amazing. All right. So again, that was Marite of Crazy Happy Casa. I will include the links on how you can follow along with her in the show notes for today. And you say show notes, Katie, how do I find the show notes? Well, I am here to tell you how to find the show notes. Just check out the description in the podcast app that you're listening to this on. Or if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, check the description box down below. And yet still, you can head on over to freemanfurnishings.com/podcast and find today's episode as well as all the previous episodes over there. And if that's just not enough options for you, well, even if it is enough options for you, also please head on over to Instagram and follow along with the podcast at Crafting a Revolution over there. You will see that I, put stuff up whenever there is a new episode out. And on occasion, when I find myself with some time, I also do some other stuff over there, like polling, crazy fun stuff like that. So yeah, that leads me into when I'm not making podcast episodes, you can find me designing, making, power carving, dancing, general shenanigans over at freemanfurnishings.com and at Freeman Furnishings pretty much across all the social media platforms. I'm active on a daily basis, pretty much always on Instagram at Freeman Furnishings, and an almost daily basis over on TikTok at Freeman Furnishings, And as of late, I've also been trying to hit up the shorts over on YouTube. So you can check me out over there too at Freeman Furnishings. All right, halfway through the week, hump day. I hope you all are having a fantastic week so far. And as always, let's go craft a revolution.
Solution for the toxic masculinity's pollution.